What's going on, FA Nation? John Impemba here with James Grande, bringing you another edition of Three Point Play. For those of you unfamiliar with Three Point Play, we take three topics. James and I take a side of each topic and give 3 points while we think our selection is the best. James, before we get going on these debates, how are you doing right now?
Doing good. Currently quarantined still. Obviously, Florida is currently a hot spot, so that
That's what I heard.
sucks. That's so has everyone else
That's the
except
rumor. That's the rumor right now.
people in Florida haven't heard that, by the way. In case you want to know, go out in public. They still don't know. Everyone, the rest of the world knows. Florida doesn't. But other than that, everything's good. Excited that this next month is so sweet. Everything is coming back in terms of sports. Hopefully. Fingers crossed, and everything's trending upwards for the sports world, and I don't think anyone at this company could be more excited. Like we're just all so enthusiastic to get back into sports. It's
Yep.
quite the time.
Nothing against esports and Counter Strike and NASCAR and PJ and MMA. All those things were great to hold us over. But now that we're getting to the meat, the core four returning, obviously that's great for all of us. Finally getting to see some players in ballparks.
Right.
Those videos have coming out. You saw Garrett Cole, taking some pitching reps on the mound in Yankee Stadium. I saw videos of Andrew Benintendi taking batting practice. So baseball is slowly returning. So that's certainly a good thing. And baseball will actually be one of the topics we're talking about here, James. So let's just jump right into it. We've seen the Vegas odds out right now. We know the favorites, obviously, teams are likely going to have the best chances of winning the World Series. So I want to ask you, and you can start this off, who is your favorite long shot to maybe run away with these 60 games and take it into the playoffs to get to the World Series?
So I think this is pretty chalky. I think a lot of people are pretty excited about the Chicago White Sox this year, and in a 60 game sample, I think anything is possible. I think we could see legitimate crazy stuff happen because we've seen really bad teams get off to hot starts and fade off in the second half of the year. I mean, the White Sox are currently 30-1 favorites in Vegas to win the World Series. That's the 16th best odds on the board. Number one, I mean, let's just talk about their acquisitions. Not only do they had a pretty good foundation of guys starting the year. I mean, we're talking about Yasmani Grandal, one of the best hitting catchers in baseball over the last 4 or 5 years. Nomar Mazara has been a 20-plus home run guy every single year. Exactly 20. It doesn't go higher or lower.
It's like the Chris Davis batting average.
246, 246 every year. Yeah, the Chris Davis batting average. Mazara, solid end of bottom third lineup guy. In Chicago, we're talking about they added Edwin Encarnacion in the middle of the lineup. He hit 30-plus home runs he must be 50 by now, still hitting 30-plus home runs. They got a very good stabilizer in Dallas Keuchel. I like the addition last year in a young rotation in Atlanta. It's basically the same situation here in Chicago. I mean, another young rotation where you can put a veteran. He had a sub-4 ERA last year. I like Keuchel. And they added bullpen help, Steve Cishek. I think that's a really underrated setup man that they signed. First off, he has closer experience if Colomé doesn't work out. I mean, he has multiple seasons of 30-plus saves, but he's been phenomenal. 4 straight seasons of an ERA under 4, under 3 actually. And Cishek is a great setup man that I think is going to go overlooked. So I think my first point is their acquisitions to an already good team. Their infusion of youth is my second point. I mean, the hype train is rolling with Luis Robert, right? I mean, he is the number 3 prospect in baseball. He has every tool in the shed. Luis Robert has. They have 3 of 5 starters under 26. Anchored by Lucas Giolito, obviously, and we saw the best version. I mean, even if it wasn't the best version, what's to come of Lucas Giolito this year? I think he is an ace that can carry them into a playoff series and through a playoff run with Keuchel behind him. And we saw flashes of greatness from Reynaldo Lopez. They have Dylan Cease. I don't know what the status of Kopech is for this year, but I mean, there's just so much youth and so many elite arms and young players. We saw the breakout of Yoan Moncada, who's still barely old enough to drink. I mean, he's 24 now, but still, we've been talking about Yoan Moncada for how many years, and he's still this young, under 25. The infusion youth, and then How about their schedule? We're talking about they're going to beat up on the Tigers and the Royals for how many games this year? And there's only 60 games. If they don't lose to the Tigers or Royals, or they win, let's say they play the Tigers and Royals 20 times this year and they go 19-1. I mean, they're going to have a really good shot of getting a good seed in the playoffs. So I love the White Sox this year. Again, I don't think that's off the board or off the wall, because I think a lot of people are kind of on board with the White Sox, but I think they're legit. And I do think in this shortened season, they have a good chance of making a serious push.
I think all those are pretty great points. I definitely, they were one of my favorite teams as well. If we're going to go ahead and bet on some long shots, I think that is it's a pretty solid, that's a pretty strong argument there. And I think, again, a lot of people were likely on top of them, just sort of given, their roster that they put together. For me, I'm actually going to go ahead and stay in that division. I'm going to go with the Minnesota Twins. I'm going to, deciding to go in that direction here. Minnesota is 16-1 odds here. They're actually the third favorite of the American League teams. And for a lot of the similar reasons that you listed, I think we're going to go in the same direction. I'm going to go with number one, some of their offseason acquisitions. They acquired Kenta Maeda in that trade with the Dodgers and the Red Sox. He's going to sort of solidify, that rotation for them that's led by Jose Barrios. They added in Rich Hill, who, again, we're talking shortened season. If Rich Hill can stay healthy for a period of time, we know how effective he can be. They're not relying on him for a full season's worth of games. They added Josh Donaldson to help bolster that lineup. So I think all of those things right there, their offseason is pretty strong. Number two, I mean, they had a lot of guys with breakout seasons last year. Mitch Garver, obviously came through tremendously for them. Jorge Polanco, Eddie Rosario, Max Kepler, that offense absolutely exploded last year. Miguel Sano, when he came back, he was, again, one of the league premier power hitters for a guy who only, appeared in like 100 games last year, hit 34 home runs, had a 920 OPS last season. So he came back from his foot injury and just absolutely raked. So there's just a lot of upside potential in that offense as well. And number three, like I said, we're talking about a division now where they're going to be playing in some of the lesser teams. You mentioned Kansas City. We're not expecting a ton necessarily out of Detroit. Cleveland's in that division as well. Cincinnati, they're fine. They're a team that's 30-1, but they've had their struggles. They're young. They're going to be able to get together for a shortened season. So for me, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go with the Minnesota Twins as my divisional long shot, we'll say, to win the World Series.
Yeah, I mean, they were probably one or two pitchers away from making a serious run last year, because that offense is so elite, and it didn't get any worse with Josh Johnson. So,
right.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really argue the Twins. I'm actually shocked they're getting so much love in Vegas. I mean, I think there are clear-cut favorites. I think Vegas is spot on. Dodgers, Yankees, Astros. I think that's pretty set in stone. But 16-1 odds on the Twins. I like it. I do like the Reds, by the way. And you mentioned the Reds to me before we got on air. That offense with the DH can be something of. I mean, obviously we need the pitching. We need Sonny Gray to be as good as he was last year.
Right. Yep.
And I think the A's would be probably my second team. Just, the very good combination of pitching. I think what we get out of Luzardo could be a key, but pitching offense combination, Oakland 25-1. I kind of like them as a sneaky pick as well.
Yeah, great. I mean, I think that's a great pick. And Howard Bender is a big fan of Oakland as well. He said it recently on he was either one of the IFA Sports Talk or it was one of the Fancy Alarm shows. He was talking about odds, and that was one of his favorite teams as well. Ronis brought up the point that Marcus Semien was third in MVP voting last year.
Right.
I was one of the people that did not realize, he had a monster year, and obviously Chapman and Olsen. So Oakland definitely going to be a contender. We think, right? Because 60 games, anything can really happen.
Anything. Yep.
So it'll be interesting to watch. Topic number 2, we want to discuss about going fantasy football this time. We're talking more about like groupthink consensus here. I want to know, what is the player that you are on that kind of goes against groupthink right now, James?
So I'm going to go someone I've been touting all off season. He changed teams, and I know again, that's probably against groupthink right now, considering everyone's against guys that are changing teams, changing systems, were delayed because of COVID. But I'm going to go Matt Breida of the Miami Dolphins. Obviously, there's injury history, and nobody can dispute that. I mean, in 2018, he literally injured every part of his body. Every week, he was playing through some type of injury. Last year was much of the same. He didn't actually play through it. But I'm going to go Breida. Number one, 5 yards per carry for his career. When he's healthy, he is electric. He's explosive. He's also a great pass catcher out of the backfield. He's converted 80% of his targets the last 2 years, 80% or better the last 2 years. Number two, we have a new offensive coordinator in Miami, and Chan Gailey coming out of retirement. So 14 years Chan Gailey has called the offense. He hasn't been in football since 2016, but 7 of those 14, his team has finished top 10 in rushing attempts. And I understand there is Jordan Howard, a guy who has 200 plus carries a year, but Chan Gailey has had multiple offenses recently in New York with Matt Forte and Bilal Powell, both with, Forte had over 200 carries. Bilal Powell had 160 carries. So I think there is a big want and desire for Chan Gailey offenses to run the football. Even in those years in the Jets, he finished in the top half of the league. 13th and 10th, I believe, were the two where he finished in rushing attempts. So I think we're going to get a lot of carries out of Breida and Howard as long as Breida stays healthy. And I think, let's face it, if Breida's as electric as he was in San Francisco, how are you going to take him off the field if he can stay healthy? And then number 3, I think the value that we're getting on Matt Breida right now, ADP currently RB 42. 42. And we're talking about, I can list probably 10 to 15 guys, either rookies or split backfields. And I know Breida's a split backfield guy, but we all know what we're going to get. We know if he stays healthy, we're going to get explosive backs and explosive runs, and we're going to get pass catches or catches out of the backfield. There's about 10 to 15 guys in front of him who are rookies going into situations we don't have no idea about. A 118 ADP, we're talking about what, round, I don't know, math, 8. So, yeah. I really like Breida as an option. We're talking about a guy who's probably being drafted RB3, RB4 right now on teams. And I think if there's health on his side, we could be looking at a RB2 potential because in PPR formats, because of his ability, his explosive playmaking ability, both running and catching the ball.
I'm not going to sit here and argue with you. You and I basically, every time we're in the basketball team together, are trading off who's getting James White and who's getting Matt Breida.
Right.
It seems like when one of us takes one, the other one takes the other. Big on Breida as well. Guy's a home run hitter. All the reasons you said. Not against groupthink, seemingly with Fantasy Alarm, is that we're also all drafting Jordan Howard. So we do believe a little bit in what his potential could be, but there are fewer home run hitters better than Breida. I think he might even tweet it out himself. He had like the fastest like breakaway run or something like that in terms of like miles per hour. I don't know, some like crazy like advanced stat tweet that he did, like talking about how fast he is on like on one of his touchdown runs. So I'm there for you on Breida. I'm gonna go with another running back here, one that I feel like is getting maybe a little bit overlooked in. Sure, there's maybe a little bit of merit to it, and that's Todd Gurley. And I'll just jump right into it. Reason number 1, people are worried about the knee. People are worried about the arthritis, and I understand the concern here. But last year he played 15 games, and the one game that he missed wasn't due to anything with the knee. He took a helmet to the quad, had a bruised quad, missed practice, missed the one game. So, the Rams last year managed him correctly. And he was able to get through the season with very minimal issues with his knee problems. And the Falcons' offense isn't going to be one that's going to rely on Todd Gurley to carry the load. Their offense is predicated on the pass. They have Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley. So I feel like him moving into this system with Atlanta is actually kind of perfect for him in a sense where they're not going to need him to carry the ball 300 times, get him from the 20 to the end zone and carry the load. So I think this is a great system for him. So number one, I'm not worried about the knee. I think the knee is going to be fine. I think he's in a good spot to go ahead and put forth a good season. Reason number two, you mentioned the ADP on Rita. Right now, we're looking at Todd Gurley going, mid to early third round for ADPs, and there's no one really behind him that's sharing the time in Atlanta. And this is a year where we're talking about, running backs who are constantly in timeshares, unknowns in terms of what their roles going to be with their respective teams as we get through the drafts. And that's really killing the running back depth. So we're getting a running back in the third round that, by all accounts, has the job to himself, which is, again, a rarity, with, the four solid running backs that all came out of the draft this year, all went to teams that already had running backs, whether it was Taylor going to the Colts, Dobbins going to the Ravens, or Swift going to the Lions. There's already established running backs in those situations. Akers obviously got drafted to replace Todd Gurley. So, again, a lot of these teams are sort of in wishy-washy situations where we don't know what's going to happen going to the draft. We do know that Todd Gurley is going to be the feature back in Atlanta, and you're getting him in the third round, which I think is just an absolute steal ADP. And I think people are letting him fall because they're worried about the knee. I'm not worried about the knee, so I think we're getting a great value here in round three. And my third point here is that he is incredibly efficient in scoring the football. If you looked at how the Rams used him last year, they managed him, and then once they got in the red zone, they gave him the football, and there's a reason why he's had double-digit touchdowns now and every year for the last, 3 seasons. And I think that's what we're going to see here again this year in Atlanta. Atlanta last season ranked 25th in red zone efficiency, scoring in just 51% of their red zone attempts. The Rams ranked 6th in the NFL in red zone efficiency. That's because Todd Gurley last year, if you're looking at his fantasy points, earned 56% of his fantasy points in the red zone last year because he scored. That's all they did with the Rams. They got inside the red zone. They stopped trusting in Jared Goff to get him down the field. They handed it off to Gurley. He scored. We know the struggles there with Atlanta is the red zone offense. They're going to get down the field using the passing attack with Julio Jones and with Calvin Ridley. And once they get inside the 10, inside the 15, they're going to run the football, and they're going to score the football with Todd Gurley. So for me, you're getting the touchdown upside still with Gurley as my point 3 is there to increase that red zone efficiency for Atlanta. My point 2 is the great ADP that we're having with him right now in the early to mid third rounds. And number 1 is I'm not worried about the knee. They're going to manage him, and he's going to be perfectly fine. I don't see a reason why Atlanta is going to bring him in, change their offense, and wear him down to the point where he can't make it through a season. So I'm perfectly fine with him. Give me all the Todd Gurley I can get in round 3, and I got the potential here to get a top 10, running back.
I agree. And if there was an injury concern, don't you think the 20-plus touches would have started earlier in the year? Later in the year, Gurley had 4 of his last 7 games with 20 carries or 19 carries or more. Right. He had 0 the first 8 weeks. So, even Atlanta could manage him that way and be perfectly fine and still end up with 200-plus carries in top of Todd Gurley. And we know the 10-plus touchdowns are coming. I love Todd Gurley. In third round, and like you said, just 2 years ago, we were drafting him as a top 3 back. So, and the production really hasn't slowed down from then. So I agree on Gurley quite a bit there.
Yep. It's just somebody that I've been high on. And a lot of these things have coming from different conversations I've had. Howard and Jen are both very high on Hayden Hurst. And one of their reasonings for it is, Austin Hooper got a lot of red zone looks last year, and they think Hurst is capable of replacing that. And I don't disagree that Hurst is going to be a fine replacement for Hooper, but I felt like the reason that there were so many red zone opportunities for all those receivers was because Ito Smith and Brian Hill and whatever, they weren't capable of running the football inside the red zone. There's a reason, again, why they ranked 25th in red zone efficiency last year. I'm expecting that to change a lot. And as you mentioned, before we jumped on here, we could see a return to a Falcons offense that ranked among one of the highest scoring offenses in football a few years ago when they went to the Super Bowl that year. And that was on the back of, a running back like Devonta Freeman who had, 11 touchdowns and whatnot. So as the running game goes, I think Atlanta's offense is more dynamic. And if they can score more in the red zone, they'll be a pretty solid offense. So give me Gurley for that. James, topic number 3 here. We'll go a little bit of a fun topic. Still keep it maybe sports-centric, but not necessarily on the sports, and that is, what is our favorite food when we go to a sporting event? You started the first 2, so I'll start this one to finish it off here. And I'm going to go at the ballpark. I'm going to go specific here to the baseball stadium, though I guess it's possible that they sell these also at football stadiums as well. But I'm going to go with the ice cream sundae in the helmet. Maybe they serve ice cream sundaes in a football helmet as well. If they do, it's been a while since I've been to a Patriots game, so I can't tell you. But I do know the last time I went to a Red Sox game, you can still get the helmet sundae. So reason number 1, who doesn't love an ice cream sundae? Right? I mean, you want vanilla ice cream. I'm a big vanilla guy. So it's certainly going to be the base for that. But then you get the cherry, you get the jimmies, the sprinkles, whatever you want to call it, hot fudge, whipped cream, perfect sundae, nice hot ballpark day to cool you off. So definitely going to go ahead and get the helmet sundae. Number 2, when you're done, you get a souvenir. You have a helmet. Yeah, I have had so many of those things. I use them as like a change, cup basically around my house. Basically, once they're full, I just transition it to a bigger, like piggy bank, basically. But got a house full of Red Sox hats to fill out some change. So you get a little bit of a souvenir for. And reason number 3, and I actually mentioned this as reason number 1. When you're sitting in the hot sun for a baseball game all day, there's really nothing better than having some ice cream. So it's still refreshing. It cools you off. It's a nice treat after you're done eating the hot dogs, whatever you're doing, the beer. You finish it off on a nice sundae. So 1, who doesn't love a sundae? 2, you get the souvenir. 3, it's a great thing to have during a hot day.
So it's better than an iced coffee and a hot day, you're saying?
Well, I mean, they do actually sell iced coffee inside Fenway, believe it or not. But yeah, I'd much rather have the ice cream sundae over the iced coffee. I can't speak to iced coffee anymore since we just lost the poll. So what am I supposed to do? Shockingly, I apparently read the coffee situation across America. Iced coffee must just be a northeastern New England thing. So
in the middle of the summer, might I add, lost. Yeah. I'm gonna go, I think, more broad to stadiums as well, not just stadiums and arenas. And I'm gonna go with the nachos, I should say. And reason number 1, I mean, agreed with your souvenir point. The nachos come in a souvenir helmet as well. What's better than a souvenir helmet? At Magic games, I get a souvenir bucket. So you can go the bucket route in the NBA. You can go the helmet route in the MLB. Number 2, variety of flavors. I am a big flavor guy. I want every bite. I want to taste a million different things. I don't like just eating, steak with no flavor. I want like 16 different flavors. I want everything. What's better than nachos for flavor? You can go with you can get hot nachos. You can go just the cheese nachos. And that's kind of what leads me into my third point. I mean, look at the adjustments, John, you can make to your nacho, right? You can go, you want jalapenos? Boom, jalapenos. You want no jalapenos, but you want some extra cheese? Perfectly fine, go extra cheese. You want everything, you want onions. There's some stadiums that sell a little guacamole. What's better than a little guacamole? Not much. I know you're probably not a guacamole guy. You don't strike me as a guacamole guy. Put a little guacamole in there. You don't want the guac, like you probably don't want the guac. Take it out. So I think the variety of flavors you can go with, the adjustments you can make within a nacho bowl or helmet, and you get the souvenir to go home, whether it's a bucket or a helmet or whatever the hell other places put nachos in. I think the nacho at all arenas and stadiums is pretty hard to top.
I do like a good nacho. I'm not going to sit here and argue with you. Again, it's the potential for mess, though, is always my biggest worry there.
Fair.
Yeah, usually if you see sort of the gaffes of like sporting events, it's a guy with his nachos and the foul ball comes and the nacho cheese gets all over you and whatnot. But when I go to Celtics games, I'm definitely getting some nachos for sure. It comes in a nice tray. It has the little spot for the cheese. Gives you the whole plate of chips to kind of dip them in. So I'm game for nachos, and if you can throw some, ground beef or something like that on top, by all means, for you there. Good options for sure. I think we could actually just formulate those two together. Start off with the nachos, finish with the sundae, and we'd have like the perfect ballpark food. Sure. So for those of you out there watching this right now, let us know what you think. Who do you think is going to be your long shot odds to win the World Series? Who is your fantasy football player that you're high on that goes against groupthink? And what's your favorite stadium food? And let us know that. Comment and tweet at this video, and I'll tell James and I what you guys think. James, before we go, any final thoughts?
No, thank God sports are coming back, man. Thank God.
Amen to that. So for that, we'll sign off now. We'll catch you guys later.